Wendy Morton.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And as we've heard, this bill has a very broad scope. And before I come to the amendments, a couple of the ones that I'm supporting, I just want to also recognise that the scope of the bill is really evidenced by the breadth and number of amendments and new clauses. And I think it's just worth just reminding ourselves gently that a number of these measures were carried over from the Criminal Justice Bill, which sadly fell due to the general election almost a year ago. Obviously, there are new clauses, there are new amendments, and I really hope that the Minister is in listening mode and in change mode and in the mode of a willingness to work across the House and accept some of these amendments, because I think it will go a long way to further improving this piece of legislation. Because having read through the bill, there is so much in here that actually goes right to the heart of the communities that we seek to serve and represent. And I know that there are topics in the bill that regularly pop into my inbox, and I'm sure into colleagues as well. But there was two specific areas that I wanted to cover today. And the first one is around fly tipping and littering, something, Madam Deputy Speaker, that I have spoken on many occasions in this chamber since I was first elected, and I've registered my support to my honourable friend, the Shadow Minister, the Member of Parliament for Stockton West, for his amendments and for his clauses too, because in an earlier intervention I touched on the cost of litter. It's actually, I think I said 1 million, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I've actually meant £1 billion. So if that could be firmly corrected, because it is a big difference. The principle is the same. It is money that could go back into our communities, but £1 billion spent on managing litter and fly tipping. That's a huge amount of money that could buy a huge amount of services for constituencies up and down the country. Yes, of course.
Thank you for giving way on this point. Does her calculations of the £1 billion actually account for the feeling and the degradation of pride in areas when people fly tip, and the failure of local services to be able to afford to be able to go and collect and clean up this rubbish tips on the sides of our roads? Because I would wonder if there is a multiplier effect of how people actually feel about their areas because of all this fly tipping.
I think the Honourable Lady makes a really important point here. There is I think, a cost that is very difficult to evaluate. There's a social cost, there's a community cost. I'm fortunate I have some fantastic volunteers and groups, the Wombles groups and others, who will go out and litter pick. I don't mind going out and helping myself with myself as well when I can. But, you know, and there's a great sense of community coming together. But there's nothing more frustrating than doing a street and then you walk back down it, or you're walking back to the car, and you found that one of the tossers has just tossed some more litter out of the car. Of course.
I thank the Honourable Lady for giving way. I don't think she was pointing at her Shadow Minister when she was accusing somebody of being a litter tosser. I think that was just a dramatic gesture, because nothing could be further from the truth. But does she agree with me, and building on the point of my honourable friend there, that when people see potholes unfilled, litter uncollected, overgrown verges, just general disrepair, that people are walking through decline? And when they see that, they feel hopeless, not just about their communities that they take such pride in, but actually the ability of their council and elected officials to act on their most immediate priorities. Would she agree with me that when we actually restore pride in place, by fixing these problems, we help to create a confidence that politics can deliver a better community?
It's a really important point about pride and where we live, and about hope. And, Madam Deputy Speaker, as I travel around the country, I often take a mental note of the number of potholes that I drive across, and it's very noticeable from one authority to another. I have to say Walsall is quite good at the moment when it comes to filling its potholes in. But going back to the point about litter and communities, the honourable gentleman makes a really important point, and when it comes again to locally, my local authority of late have been successfully prosecuting some litter bugs, people that have been, I've got a couple of examples that I picked up on social media just this week. Individuals who've been treating the High Street in Pelsall for their own personal litter bin, and the local authority has gone after them and fined them. And I think that sends a very strong message. But I think there's a bit more that I believe we can do, because I think as much of it is about clearing up after these people, but it's also about, is there enough of a deterrence to actually stop this happening? Because a lot of it is, in my view, it's down to lack of respect for the community and just antisocial behaviour, for want of a better word. And I do think it's a burden that we shouldn't be expecting the taxpayer to continue to keep shouldering. So I think we have got to this point now where we've reached something of a tipping point, and just letting people walk away with just a slap on the wrist. We need something more than that. So whether it's bin strikes, we see those in Birmingham, rural fly tipping, littering, I do think a lot of our communities are now feeling absolutely fed up and often overwhelmed, and they want some action. So I'm supporting the amendments that my honourable friend has put down, because I think what they do taken together is form a serious and joined up response that helps to protect our communities, supports those who want to keep it clean, but also it helps to protect the local environment and the wildlife as well. And similarly, it's often the local farmers who face the burden of fly tipping. When the fly tipping happens on their land, the cost of removing it falls down to the local farmer. That hardly seems fair, that they are left to foot the bill for waste that they didn't create. And that's why, in terms of Amendment 172, which is about the clean-up costs, this seeks to address that, because I've heard time and time again, from frustrated landowners and farmers, that currently the system, it punishes the victims of fly tipping so often and not the perpetrators. Yes, of course.
I thank the Honourable Lady for giving way on that point. Does the Honourable Lady have any thoughts on the idea that people who actually enlist people to take away some of their rubbish so they can hire somebody privately are often being held accountable for that third-party company dumping the rubbish illegally, and so people seem at odds and at a loss of what they're supposed to do at the moment?
The Honourable Lady makes another really important point, which is around tackling waste crime, I think is the technical phrase for it. And again, that's something that we see locally. And I think then enforcement matters, but also there has to be a strong, I hate to use the word education, but almost about educating or reminding perhaps constituents that if somebody comes to you to say they will clear your rubbish away, you need to really think carefully about where they're putting that rubbish. We've had examples of fridges dumped, of mattresses dumped. I was driving down Bridle Lane last year, and there was a whole lorry load, van load of rubbish, of fly tipping, just in the middle of the road. The road actually had to be blocked. That is just outrageous, and it needs to stop. So I also support Amendments 173 and 174, which is around cost liability guidance, because again, these are building on that same principle that those who cause the mess should be being charged to pay for clearing it up. It shouldn't fall on time and time again on stretched local authorities or private landowners to clean up the aftermath of what is criminal behaviour. And I touched on enforcement earlier, but unless offenders are financially liable, I do think any deterrent will also be limited. And finally, on litter, I also think that we need to start looking at penalty points on licences for those who are caught throwing litter out of cars. Again, a deterrent, something to remind people that it is simply not acceptable to throw litter indiscriminately out of a car.